All right, this one has been highly recommended, highly requested, and even had a little bit of a pump pushed into the poll to push it to the top of the chat. So Zeppela, let's see what you have to say about the Novice Network experience.
We're going to be talking about the Novice Network in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, in theory, the Novice Network is intended to be a place where mentors, experienced players who have signed up to be a mentor and therefore have agreed to actively provide gameplay advice for new adventurers, to be an exemplar for player etiquette, and to invite adventurers, little baby sprouts, into the Novice Network to give them help and to, I assume, not steal their credit card numbers. We'll get to that in a second. As a new player, you will get an invite from a mentor to this Novice Network where you will hopefully have some intellectual and
In theory, this is one of the pride and joys and the reason that this game does so well, because other games do not have as well fleshed out or developed of a mentor system. World of Warcraft has added one in the last couple of years, and theirs works distinctly different than Final Fantasy's in ways that tell me that maybe World of Warcraft devs looked at the results of what happens with the Final Fantasy one and said that they did not want a carbon copy.
enlightening discussions. So, I mean, the question is the Novice Network actually helpful? Is it a ancient Athenian agora where fellow students can gather, or is it more like Baron's chat? Last night I was asking people about this in my stream, and someone said that they had seen scammers in the Novice Network trying to trick people into giving out their credit card info, and they had seen someone say, did you know Final Fantasy blocks you from posting your card info? Watch. And then just a bunch of X's. Try it yourself. Look, not all problems with the Novice Network aside, if you type in your credit card number into a video game to send to another player and press enter, like maybe you shouldn't be on the internet at all. Like maybe you need to take a step back. Maybe have mommy watch you when you're on the computer. When I was a new player, the Novice Network had not yet been invented, and so that is why I reached out on Twitter to ask what your experiences in the Novice Network have been like. It seems your server will have a big impact on what your local Novice Network will be like. One person said that it was only German language in his, and they ignored it.
The thing about the Novice Network is you're talking about somebody whose total amount of playtime is very, very, very low. And so the impact that you can have on their experience is percentage-wise very, very large, right? If they are running Sestasha for the first time and you decide to be a dick about it, you have an enormous sway over their view of what dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV is, because you are controlling a 100% market share of everything they've done as far as dungeons, especially if this person has no prior multiplayer, MMO, or RPG experience, where this is it. And so when they queue for Sestasha and they have a miserable experience, and then they, 2, 3, 4 dungeons later, they've had a miserable experience 4 times in a row, that could be 4 or 5 bad apples, and it's so rare. And that player could quit and be gone forever. Forever. That's it. It's not worth sticking around. And so the Novice Network is an incredibly impressionable space, even if it's filled with adults, because this is their first impressions of Final Fantasy. And so you have to be the best representation of all of us, because you are talking about setting the foundation of what they are going to come to expect from the community as a whole.
English-speaking players. One mentor, Mateus, said that it is helpful and horrible at the same time, that they'll answer Sprout's questions in the middle of flaming each other over the most inane arguments. The first thing I saw when I first logged in one day, okay, I cannot say that on YouTube. I will have to censor this. I will rephrase this for y'all.
I believe you have to censor it because they're getting better at recognizing words. So.
All right. For YouTube. Okay, so feeling the thick pickle, filling her with pickled juice made her very happy too. She thrashed about on the floor and squirted her Nerf Super Soaker 200, her mind was being shattered from pleasure, even as she heard Another Round, the song that's called Another Round. She surely would not be able to handle such a thing, already being covered in clothes. She was fully clothed and getting ready to go to church, actually. Her tongue was hanging from her lips because it was raining, and she was she was a little thirsty. She was certainly that. There are people who take the time to go above and beyond to help, and there are some who ignore you or say, do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
One person said that it is pretty much like Baron's Chat from WoW back in the day. Well, I mean, I learned a lot of important things in Baron's Chat.
Baron's Chat is if you took young adults and trapped them in the conversations had in the back seats of a middle school bus, and you just let it run on loop, on repeat, eternally, and was never interrupted by an adult. But Baron's Chat is also Baron's Chat. And the reason Baron's Chat formed, for anybody that never played WoW, is there is a zone called the Barons, where Horde players end up trapped for an enormous level range. And you pass through it regularly on the flight path system because you can't just teleport straight past it with the Aetheryte system. So throughout vanilla WoW, you spent a lot of time in or passing through the Barons. And so each zone had its own unique chat, and so you end up with this huge string of players, and it's a very active conversation. And so it became this place to come in and post memes and jokes with heavy emphasis on the current memes of the day, Chuck Norris jokes and beyond. And it became a place that people kind of knew for this culture, and so the culture became self-perpetuating. The difference between this and a novice network is like the novice network, in theory, you're carrying around with you, and so you don't just leave. And in theory, it's a place for asking, as opposed to like the Barons is about asking where Mankirk's wife is and being memed into the ground.
Like the fact that Chuck Norris doesn't sleep. He waits. Time waits for no man, unless that man is Chuck Norris. One person said that in their novice network, there was a week straight where they only talked about Subarus. I only experienced one instance of a mentor abusing their kick ban powers, but they were quickly shut down by the other mentors. Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of like, are the dickheads outnumbered by the good heads? Novice Network in Tonberry server is noticeably the chattiest and most welcoming in the whole Elemental data center. There are more and more sprouts from other servers visiting Tonberry just to join the network. Hey, that's a good tip. Those of y'all on NA wondering, is Tonberry NA? No, it's
No.
JP. Okay.
No.
That doesn't make any sense.
JP.
Okay. I was like, there's no way that's NA. When I came back and was working through the Stormblood main story, mentors in the Novice Network were talking about and spoiling the 4.3 trial. When I asked them to stop, I was told that
Anyone that cares about the story has already done it.
I often invite sprouts to the Novice Network, and now I'm concerned that I've sent them into hell. I definitely will be keeping a better eye on the Novice Network after seeing these replies. They'll be fine. They'll be all right. 10% helpful, 90% random, toxic conversations. It feels like the...
So Tonberry's on the Japanese servers, and the Japanese servers, for any of you that have ever had the opportunity to travel abroad with work, with the military, with school, just on your own, when you are in your home country, most countries have groups of people that don't get along with each other. And so, but because we share so much, I can choose who I spend my time with. And so if somebody is miserable to spend time with, I can find somebody else who likes the same food as me, who speaks the same language as me, who has similar upbringings, beliefs, cultural, socioeconomic status, whatever your filter may be. And you can choose to surround yourself with an echo chamber of whatever makes for the best friend and support group You have that privilege. But when you travel abroad, you lose that privilege. You don't have control over who else in whatever country you visit knows your culture, knows your language being a huge one, and has similar thoughts and actions to how you would like to move through the world. And as a result, the group you get to pick with really thins out. And so it's very easy to share a meal with somebody that you probably wouldn't get along with in your home country because they speak the same language, and it's nice. And you have common ground, where when I'm here in the US, you being from the US is not common ground. That doesn't really distinguish you from the next person in the line at the grocery store. And so I think that JP is set up in a way where, like, you have Japanese servers and you have players from like the Oceanic region that speak English. And so it does not shock me that their novice network tends to be a little more understanding, because I think they're all excited to have somebody that speaks English to play this game with. So it does not shock me that Tonberry got named as a friendly novice network, because I would assume they're all just like, hey, I know there's not a whole lot of English-speaking resources on this server.
14 equivalent of trade chat. I definitely feel like a lot of mentors let the crown get to their heads. That's why people started calling it the Burger King crown. It's because they were just trying to make it seem less cool than it is. The choice of a crown to be the mentor icon was very poor. It should have been a watering can, because you're helping a sprout, right?
So the reward is one of the things that World of Warcraft noticeably left out. If you opt into their mentor style system, they do have a sprout icon. The sprout icon only appears if you are a mentor. So the sprout icon is not public like it is in Final Fantasy, I think for fear that people would meme new players into the ground or not want to play with them. And the mentor style system does not really give you a reward. And I think that's because while at first glance, the people who take time out of their day to offer help to new players and welcome them into our community, we all think, hey, maybe we should get them a gift. Maybe we should all sign a card and say thank you. Maybe we should have something as a community that says we appreciate that you're taking on a responsibility that you didn't have to. But unfortunately, in reality, what that triggers is people who go, I kind of want that crown. I kind of want the rewards for running Mentor Roulette. I kind of want some of these big shiny things at the end of the reward thing. And so you see mentors that have their status set to like, don't ask me questions, you know, and they don't want to interact with other players. They just have mentor turned on because they want the reward for being a mentor. I will say that if you report that person, they can lose their mentor status. And if they lose their mentor status, my understanding is they can never get it back. It sucks that we have to turn into tattletales to stop there from being, you know, dicks taking advantage of a system, but that's where we're at.
Zodiac was once a peaceful server with a genuinely helpful novice network, but everything changed when a fake craft mentor named Charlie arrived. The balance of power was destroyed, and novice network became a cesspool of toxic waste. But with the power of genuine mentors, we finally drove him out. Everything changed when the Charlie Nation attacked. Some people say it's been a godsend. So many helpful people, fellow new people to team up with. A great experience so far. Man, your mileage may vary. Holy crap. I opted not to use it. The one time I did try, some creeper asked me for feed pics, so I left. That sucks, and I know, because I have had people...
And there it is. The one time. And so people are like, it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't... This is people's first drink from Final Fantasy. And so saying there's only a little poop in the water, like, it doesn't take that much. It takes one person to leave this person with a bad taste. And what if that person leaves such a bad taste they leave the game? And that person who made that decision on behalf of the entire community might feel good. We're better off without them. If they can't hack it, get them out of here. I just told them to get good. Great. I think if we all had a vote, a huge number of us would rather you be gone, the person that did that, than somebody who's just trying to play the game. I would way rather somebody who just wants to come in and have a good time and not affect somebody else's than have somebody who their fun is in making somebody else's experience worse.
Ask me for feet pics as well, and I personally don't really mind showing those pictures, so I think I'll just put my picture right here on YouTube so people won't ask. I've never seen a more belligerent cesspool with a million different clicks that openly give new players wrong information in my life. Some mentors are grumpy and get mad if you have a different opinion from them. Well, I mean, I've been on the internet more than one day. I think most of us can handle that. I haven't been part of it. I didn't know about it, and then I've watched enough videos to not want to. Oh yeah, you don't need Novice Network because you got my videos, right? It's my videos, right? Mostly nice, but there was one person in Phoenix who begged for help on almost every single main story dungeon because he didn't want to do them synced because it was too hard. That's so sad.
So you can say that, but this person that wanted this, there is a huge common trend where we tell people that this is a story-based game first, a narrative-based game first, where it is an RPG first and an MMO second, where we tell people that this is a single-player game with an MMO overlay, that this is something where the playing with other players is optional, but it's not. And it's not very, very, very quickly. Once you're at endgame and you know your way around, yes, if you want to go live in a cottage in the mountains by yourself, you can. Especially in Shadowbringers, where trust dungeons allow you to progress through patch content that has a dungeon tied to it without other players. But for a brand new player that may have been sold on trying this game, because don't worry, it's an RPG first and an MMO second, the moment that they get to that level 15 or 17 quest or whatever it is, and it says, use the duty finder to go into Sastasha, we have sold them a giant lie. They immediately need other players. They immediately need to do something. And yes, for those of us that are comfortable with that, the stakes in Sastasha are unbelievably low. But for somebody that was told, don't worry, you can just go through the story, it's no big deal, that's a big punch in the face. It's a huge punch in the face. And so I understand where this person came from. Saying everybody's nice, but somebody is not nice because they wanted help. Why do they want help? Well, because they're not comfortable doing them for real. Okay, well, how do we get them past that? I don't think that person's totally insane there. But we have done a lot as a community marketing this game as an RPG first and an MMO second. And I have pushed back the entire time. And here on Work to Game, Brian is in the RPG first MMO camp and I am not. And we debate it regularly because we fall on opposite ends of that debate. And I'm not saying that side does not have any value, but this is my concern. This is the area where I draw issue with that. Brian thinks it's RPG first, and for probably the bulk of the game, he's probably right. For 85 or 90% of Final Fantasy, he's probably spot on. My concern is that by saying that, in that last little percentage, is some of that percentage comes really, really early on in the game. And so somebody that's like, wow, 85%, I'm going to get through the first 85%. I'll just skip that last 15%. You can't. It's right up front.
I know that mentors get a lot of crap, and a lot of it is deserved, but you don't hear a lot about the people that are just very, very needy and clingy and don't want to try at all. As a mentor, I go out of my way to be helpful and generous. I like taking care of sprouts. I like being a teacher, but apparently that's not the norm. I see a lot of unhelpful or needlessly rude mentors out there. I hope all my sprouts remember me. When I was in it, it got spammed with a person trying to marry other players, so I left it again. So this one person ruined it. Probably Charlie. Charlie. Someone mentioned the erotic roleplay that's happening in Zodiac Novice Network. Maybe they are teaching the novice erotic roleplayers. Honestly, a complete fest. The amount of arguing and self-centered ego boosting from the majority of mentors in there was unbearable. Really great in my experience, however, spoilers are common. My advice to people is that if you want to be helpful, help the sprouts. You don't need mentor status or the novice network. It's a gimmick and rarely used for its intended purpose. That is the
I think this is the single best comment so far.
most based comment I've seen in a while. I went to Novice Network when I became a mentor. I was actually excited to help, and then I got attacked by other mentors for being a tryhard. Yeah, it seems like there is this divide between people that want to use Novice Network for its intended purpose and people that want to use it as a general chat. Absolutely fantastic. I taught the mentors how to play the game. I swear, the only thing the Novice Network is used for is finding other people with similar kinks as you to ERP. There was this sprout who had a lot of questions about crafting and gathering. I did my best to explain everything I could, and he added me later, and then we started to hang out. I treated him like I'd treat anyone in my friends list, formal but friendly. He joined a free company and knew people there. The lad was growing up, and I was happy he found a place so he can hang out with other people. Later, he told me, I broke up with my girlfriend in real life, and now she wants me to leave her apartment, and I have only a week. And I was like, oh no, do you have a place to stay? Friends? Family? And he said, no, I did it for you. I was hoping I'd stay with you, which gave me the creeps. So I told him right away I did not feel that way towards him at all, and he should call someone he knows if he wants a place to stay. He got mad and then told everyone in the Novice Network that I have been leading him on, and then the other sprouts, mentors in his FC, started to say the same thing, blaming me for his decision. Until I left the whole server behind. I'm so sorry to laugh because it seems like you got a lot of crap for this from the FC. That's so crazy. Did it for you. On Midgard's armor, we have a sprout that's always making trouble, even making sexual advances at times, stirring the pot, and all the mentors can do is boot him out for 30 minutes. It's so disruptive. What? It doesn't.
I don't understand. This is just makes me never want to recommend the Novice Network to anybody. I do find that in general, it's easier for me to just answer their question than to tell them where, because they're usually asking by its very nature novice questions. For the fact that I've been playing this game since A Realm Reborn, I only have like 3,000 hours, but it's a lot more than a novice, right? I know many of you have much more experience and a much broader and deeper experience than me. But compared to somebody that's just installed the game, I know a great deal about this game. And when they start to ask questions like, hey, I have a question about Savage, I have a question about Ultimate, I have a question about, top tier gear, when they start to get to the very far end of something, I usually have to recommend a source, but that source is not the Novice Network. That source is somebody who's an expert on that because they're venturing into advanced questions. But when they're asking things about, MSQ as far as like a concept, like, hey, how important is MSQ? And they're asking how to unlock a system, how to unlock crafting or gathering or when they should do it. Those are really basic questions. And sometimes it's easier to just answer than it is to send them off to a source because I do know the answer to most of those questions. This does not make me any more confident. It's nuts.
Doesn't look like GMs are even looking at reports. You can only boot them out for 30 minutes at a time. I almost feel like I shouldn't say that on YouTube because, but maybe it's better for me to draw attention to the problem. Maybe something will be done about it because if someone is like hugely disruptive, then you need a more long-term solution than that. Someone said.
Well, I will go back just a touch and say it doesn't look like the GMs are looking at reports. We don't want to live in a world where a single report gets somebody banned. We don't. Because imagine that somebody just decides to ban you because they said, hey, do you mind not rolling on that piece of loot? But you'd already rolled and you're like, I need it. I legitimately need that piece of loot. It's an improvement for my class. And so you win the role, you get the loot, you're so excited, you equip the gear, and then they report you and they say this person was toxic. I asked them for a simple request, and out of nowhere they were a complete jerk to me. And then the GM goes, yep, they were a jerk, banned. And so, like, looking at the reports, they don't have a ton of context. It could literally be a misunderstanding. They read the chat log to them. They're like, yeah, I can see why people are frustrated at each other, but I don't think either person has broken terms of service. And so does not look like the GMs, does not mean that they're not keeping a tally and saying, hey, this person's been reported 10 times in the last week. Maybe it's time that we give them a timeout. And we also don't want it to be a static number. Oh, well, as soon as you get 10 reports, you're all done. Because then every time somebody is seen as making trouble by a community, and I'm not saying this person was not, but I'm saying anytime somebody is seen as making trouble, all it would take is a group of 10 coordinated individuals to get that person banned. And I don't want to live in a world where 10 people can go be vigilantes and the GM's hands are tied and they have to ban that person. So it does suck that unfortunately means that we have to let people run around who are possibly making sexual advances or something like that. But depends on if these were taken to the point that they were breaking terms. You know, I would rather live in a world where a couple people were skirting the rules and bending them to the point that it made me uncomfortable and it made life suck a little bit than think about a world where we have to say, okay, how many good people are we willing to ban from the game to make sure that we catch these guys? Because we probably still wouldn't. There would still be rule benders getting around, and we would just have good people getting banned for no reason. So without more context, I will say that, like, doesn't look like the GMs are even looking at reports, doesn't mean they aren't. And I would just be very careful to say, like, I banned them and I stood there and watched their character. They didn't wink out of existence right in front of my eyes. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Maybe something will be done about it, because if someone is like a hugely disruptive, then you need a more long-term solution than that. Someone said that they needed a Dungeon for Realm Reborn main story quest, and they asked the Novice Network if anyone was willing to help. 3 people came around, and surely they helped me clear the dungeon. One of them friended me afterwards, and I thought it was all chill, so I accepted the invite. But right the next day, they started following me to where I was progressing through the main story quest, asked if I needed any more help on anything, and then proceeded to ask if I could get out of the party so I could be part of their party. Needing the party chat to be able to talk to my friend, who was on the free trial till level 60, I asked why they wanted me to do that, and they said so they could follow me around doing the main story quest. During the conversation, while trying to think of what to say, they commented multiple times on how they really like the way my character looks. And when I said that I was a bit uncomfortable with them following me everywhere, they said, oh, don't worry. If that's the case, just invite me to your party and I'll watch you from afar. It won't be a problem. You won't notice. I felt this was really...
I think they were trying to be nice. If you read it like that, though, I feel like she should have had, like, some, like, 60 Minutes music in the background and made it be like, oh no, I know in the next scene that they get murdered. Like, it did feel very creepy when she read it like that.
Super creepy. I felt really uncomfortable, so I said, do as you will, but my friend isn't willing to invite you to the party. And then teleported to my next main story quest location. They private messaged me and said that they weren't expecting to lose me so quickly. And at this point, I was asking my friend if I could somehow not show my location to them. Then later, they saw that I was in Ishgard and spoiled a really important part of the story, I think out of spite. I ended up banning the user.
That's actually bannable. Reaching out to somebody, whispering somebody spoilers, that is straight up bannable. So just be aware. All the creepy stuff, very, very hard to enforce. What's the definition of creepy? Whose point of view are we viewing it from? We tried to help this sprout that we helped yesterday. Sounds like a wholesome story. These people followed me around and I didn't want them to. Sounds really creepy. They're both describing the same event from 2 points of view. Spoiling the story is where they cross the line. That actually can get them banned. Prior to then, you have a blacklist. We've seen people ask for the blacklist to get lengthened over the years. Much like the friends list, Yoshi P has said in interviews that that's something they keep an eye on, how many people's are full before they dedicate resources to expanding it when it's a very small percentage of players that are actually filling their friends list.
With my friends' help, but to this day, this is the main reason I don't friend people unless I know them. So creepy. It's super. The part where they're like, don't worry. Just invite me to your party and I'll watch you from afar. You really should be able to hide your location on the map. I asked them to.
So in World of Warcraft, they actually had to deal with this. After a number of years, you had people who wanted to be able to play their games, and they don't always want to play with their friends. They're real friends. And so sometimes they want to be able to put themselves in an unlisted state so your friends cannot see you're online. If Final Fantasy grows, you're going to have people that want that level of privacy and say, hey, one night a week, I just want to let loose and I want to hop on. I don't want to be seen online by my free company. I'll just have that chat closed. I don't want to be on in any of my link shells. I don't want to talk to anybody on my friends list. I don't want anybody seeing that I'm playing the game. I'll have Discord closed and I just want to sit in it. I want to go in my private house and craft or whatever. And, it's not as simple as like unfriend in that state. That was a much requested feature that they did add. And I could see Final Fantasy needing to add that. That's more of a do not disturb. That doesn't fix this exact situation because that's people that they're not going to want to interact with ever. But there are times that you're like, hey, I just want to play the game and I don't actually want to talk to anybody. So it's not you. I literally don't want to talk to anybody. And so I'd like to go do some single player content and be in like a do not disturb, like show me as offline. And I could see that being a feature that comes out of this request, even though it wouldn't handle this request in particular very well.
Send me a picture of their character since this person was obsessed with the way their character looked. Every quest you take, every kill you make, I'll be watching you. I used it when I returned to the game the first time. And not trying to sound ungrateful, because I think they were trying to help, but I would log in and within seconds they would ask if I needed help. And then they would find me and just keep sending me messages even after I told them I was good or I hadn't decided on what I was going to do that day. Oh my God, that would drive me insane. Hey, were they also asking if they could watch you from afar? They got their binoculars out. I think you met the same mentor. One person said that when they were new, they were harassed in the Novice Network, so they left. And now as a mentor, there's one or two mentors who hang out there all day long and actively make the channel worse. Not with outright actionable harassment, but picking arguments with other people, always insisting their opinions are right, complaining when Sprouts bring up topics that they're tired of discussing, etc. So it sucks that the ego of one or two people can make such an otherwise helpful resource worse for an entire server. Yeah, it seems like just getting 1,500 commendations doesn't really mean anything, since anyone can get commendations from playing a tank or a healer in a dungeon and not even saying anything the whole time. It's not that hard. I mean, you just need to put in the time. You don't necessarily have to be kind and helpful to get commendations. So I feel like we need a different kind of reputation system to establish certain mentors as actually helpful.
I don't know that social scores is the answer, period. Social scores starts to become some sort of popularity thing. Content creators would naturally be able to rise up the ranks. People who want to take active roles in leadership in guilds would naturally find ways to rise up the ranks. People with funny character names or something like that. And so it wouldn't necessarily create some value for somebody that says, hey, in a one-on-one thing, if somebody asks me a question, I know a lot about the game and I'd be happy to relay that information on. I don't know that that's 100% correlated with who would work their way up a social scoring system. And so I don't know that fixing commendations is the fix. Because inherently, like any other thing isn't gonna make it that much better. I regularly get commented on my chicken suits, and so I should just run in chicken suits for everything, and I get comms when I run as a chicken suit. I don't know that that's a good representation of my knowledge of the game, or that that's a good way of making sure that I do not have too much ego. That's a good way of making sure that I have a really goofy looking chicken.
I don't know what though. Maybe we should do like Google reviews. Carried me through.
Oh God. Google reviews give a ton of power to, like, if you guys have not seen the South Park episode where they talk about being like a restaurant reviewer or whatever. I have friends and family that own small businesses, and like Google reviews are not perfect. You can have one person go in and post something insane, and then there's nothing you can do about it. That's why businesses regularly ask you to go push out reviews, is not actually because they need your one review to be added to theirs. They need it to buffer for the, if not it's already there, but someday future insane person, so that somebody sees they have 200 reviews that are all good and one review that's bad, as opposed to all the good people are like, yeah, I enjoy their business, I've never posted a review. And then some random person looks them up and they have some crazy person that's like, yeah, I just went in there and for no reason they did this. Not for no reason. You're not representing the entire story fairly. So it's not that perfect. I think that the mentor system as a whole is something that's always going to be hard to implement. So, I'm not willing to toss my own suggestions, so I do want my criticism to be taken with a grain of salt here. But the existing system is the result of them trying to make the best of a series of things that are all going to be faulty from as far as I can see it.
Eden Savage, but asked for feet pics afterwards. 4 stars. Is Novice Network a mistake? Is this whole system a mistake, or have you actually been one of the people to have good experiences? There was like a fair bit of people who said that on their server, the Novice Network is very good. It does seem to be very server dependent and maybe even time of day dependent. It just depends on, are the helpful people online right now? In general, after reading through this, I kind of feel like finding a helpful, good FC is much better, because then you will be able to stay with them long after you lose your Sprout status.
And that's really where the problem on the internet starts, is that anonymity, right? That idea that I can be a jerk to somebody because it makes my day better. I can vent how I'm feeling to some random stranger and I don't have to deal with the fallout. And so I can make their day, 200 units worse because it makes my day 100 unit of feeling better, and then I can just move on and I don't have to pay that tab. And when you get into a friend group, you can't do that. You can't just yell at your friends because you had a bad day, because you're going to have to pay for that later. You're going to have to go back and apologize and treat them with a little more respect. And so you don't. You say, hey, I'm not feeling great right now, and you make an effort to say, I do want to talk about this, but I'm not going to just shout at you. And so you have to make that effort, and that's part of having this kind of empathy for this person, because you know that this person matters, as opposed to it to being an anonymous user on the internet where you can just dismiss it and move on with your day. It's the same as cutting somebody off in traffic. You'll never see that person again. So you make their day worse. You almost get them in a wreck. You make them spill their coffee, or their baby's in the back crying or whatever, and it's not your problem. And so you can just, through bad planning, say, well, I almost missed my exit. Here in Texas, the next exit's a full 1 whole mile away. It would take 1 whole minute out of my day because I made a stupid decision. Or I could just make this person's whole day worse and it would fix it. And then you can just do that and be a jerk. And that's why we have jerks, is there's no accountability for that. And so if you want to be around people that treat you with respect, I do think going somewhere where respect is baked into the formula is really helpful. Creating a friend group, going and being part of, a particular community, be it a Discord, be it a free company or a link shell, where you helping them means one day they might help you. And it doesn't need to be because there's a tab that's paid in particular where I helped you exactly 6 times and you owe me help 6 times. But there is a tab of respect that's built up where I treated you with respect when you asked for something, even if I told you no, and you therefore are extending that same respect back to me. And so I do think that the Novice Network is a great place to kind of start as far as meeting people, but the goal should be to form some sort of relationship or bond with a community, even if you just want to play alone. Finding a link shell that organizes the hunt group that you need to do your hunts or whatever, finding a Discord community that answers the questions you have about crafting. Those are the sorts of things that can create a place where you're less likely to run into these people that can just dump and vomit whatever crap comes out of their keyboard right into your life with little to no consequences, because ultimately you picked what community you are a part of. And so you have a reason to respect that community. And obviously you wouldn't have picked it if that community didn't have a reason to respect you.
So again, I encourage people to check the community finder on Lodestone and try to find a good FC. That there does seem to be a general consensus among everybody who had good or bad experiences in the network that the mentor system needs a rework of some kind, that the requirements to become a mentor are too lax, or we need just some better way to show that someone is actually consistently helpful. I was memeing about the review system earlier, but now that I'm thinking about it a little more, I wonder if there could be a separate type of commendation that a mentor could only get from sprouts who are in the novice network or in the mentor roulette, and they have to get a certain number of those to like reapply for their mentor certification. Like they would have to keep the certification up and reapply every once in a while, every few months maybe.
So the downside of that is you're putting the emphasis on novices now having to toss this out. So that's one more thing for novices to do, right? Because the action plan becomes, let's take these people that are going into this network because they're overwhelmed, and let's make sure that when I've helped them that they're leaving a review. And I can tell you that when I go into a business that wants me to leave a review, so, I have reviewed apps on the App Store, but I can tell you right now that if I'm trying to use your app right now to like look up a location for one of your franchises, or I'm trying to get to a piece of information inside your app and that screen pops up and says leave a review, that hurts my user experience. And as a result, that's not how you get the best review out of me. I'm a little bit frustrated, especially when that pops up very early into the experience. And so I don't yet have a formed opinion. I can tell you that if I'm like, well, there's things about your app that I like, and there's things about your app that I don't like. If you shove that in my face and go, yeah, but you got to review it right now, right now, right now, right now. Have you reviewed it? You got to do it right now. Well, I guess I'll pick the bad one. Because that doesn't create that space. And so if the goal is to welcome these people that are so overwhelmed that they don't feel they can run an MSQ dungeon, I don't know that pushing that to them. But once again, like I'm offering this criticism without offering my own plan. I do agree that the novice network is faulty. I think stripping the rewards is probably the first thing I would do. Take out the crown, take out anything tied to those. You can make them releasable through another things so that people who want those cosmetics can get them. So go tie them behind doing a quiz at an NPC or something to test your knowledge, or completing Hall of the Novice and things like that. So in addition to the brand new ring, you also get the crown. Go launch those off over there so that people that want them can have them, and make the novice network something that people opt into. That way it can be seen entirely as kind of that I do it because I chose to. And that would, I think, already drop the number of people who are incentivized to do it for the rewards. Now, these people who are actively chatting in there, they're looking for somewhere to chat. And so, they've been trying to emphasize systems such as the fellowship system. They've talked about this future system that was development nicknamed Circles. So they've talked about trying to bypass this in the past. Circles was mentioned in an interview that Brian and I had directly with Yoshi P, asking about this sort of system. What are you doing to kind of welcome new players into the game? And, how do people find communities to kind of plug into, was kind of what that was acting as an answer to. And the circle system is something we have yet to see. The idea there being that you would have these generations where you'd have like class of 2021, where you would group these novices into kind of link shell-esque type things on their own, so that they have people that they bond with. And then ideally that would make it very easy to kind of, since they're grouped, maybe you can have people in there that are experienced returning players, things like that do have the answers to these things. I do think that at this point, this is where, when somebody has a bad experience, hopefully rather than quitting, they go out to Google, because at that point, there are a ton of communities to get plugged into that are a ton of different personalities. When you look from the difference from Zepla to Mistech to Mr. Happy to Xenos, you have a wide variety of attitudes and content types and presentation types to choose from, to get to sometimes the very same information. And so ideally, the Novice Network is acting as a launching platform, and one of the things that I think the game could be better about doing is pointing to out-of-game resources. That's where something, in my opinion, steps forward as like the ArenaNet program, where Square Enix goes in and says, hey, this is a YouTube channel that we are at least aware of, and we're not necessarily condoning everything they say on it, but these are Twitch channels, YouTube channels, Reddit communities, Discord communities, that we are aware of, where you might be able to find access of this type. It does put a ton of pressure on them, because then if those communities mismanage that, they look like they've condoned it. And so I understand why they don't do that, but I do think that's where the Novice Network will always fall short, because at the end of the day, it's only going to take one bad mentor, and there's just no way to guarantee that every mentor is on good behavior at all times. There is no system by which you would vet these people, where you wouldn't have to just make them paid employees.
To remain a mentor, remain someone that can be active in the mentor chat. I'm not sure though. That's just a random idea I threw out there. Buns, if you like this video, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon or on Twitch. You can also support the channel for free by clicking the subscribe button or by sharing this video with your fellow Warriors of Light. Thank you so much.
So I do think at that point, you know, if this video makes you want to go be a positive influence in there, then go join the Novice Network. If you want to stay away from it, I understand that too. Helping people does not require you're a member of the Novice Network. I am not a member of the Novice Network. I am not a mentor, and I have helped people in dungeons regularly. I run things with Sprouts all the time, but I have answered questions for people. I have whispered people, and that is independent of YouTube or Twitch. That is something I can just do in game. It doesn't take a ton of effort. It doesn't take a ton of time. I do less of it when I play while I stream. Because I'm busy doing something else, but you can do that. You absolutely can. And so helping people does not require a title or a network. You can actually just be helpful. And anybody that does that, like, you're making the community a better and more welcoming place. This community regularly touts itself as the best MMO community. And so when one community in another MMO acts really negative in a certain way, and Final Fantasy acts negative as well, that is the reason I hold Final Fantasy to a higher standard. That is a self-appointed higher standard. They're the ones that say they're better, and so I expect them to act like it. If you really think you're the better community, then show me time and time again, not one time and then now you get to be jerks. Regularly and consistently reinforce that this really is a community worth bragging about. It really is something that is a feature of Final Fantasy that is worth setting Final Fantasy apart, is that the community really is great. And so when we see people being negative, it doesn't take that much negative to make the entire community seem like, oh, so you have a couple of jerks in there. Well, that's pretty much every community on the internet. Kinda.